Hi, I'm Gabriel, and this is the Collective Narrative Fall 2019 Quarterly Update. Collective Narrative is a system that enables easier and more engaging collaborative storytelling. So, what is collaborative storytelling? Well, I have a few examples here. The first is LARPing, live action role playing. The second is murder mystery parties, and the third, Dungeons and Dragons. And besides being all very nerdy ways of having fun, these are examples of collaborative storytelling because at their core, they involve a group of people getting together to develop a storyline. And these storylines are often very immersive and engaging because they require everyone to do some acting and do some very active participation. Collaborative storytelling is also a very social experience, and because of this immersiveness and these social interactions that collaborative storytelling affords, it's a lot of fun for people. So, what exactly is the problem? Well, it's super hard to plan and coordinate these collaborative storytelling experiences. I'm going to focus on murder mystery parties and murder mysteries more generally for the rest of the presentation. And these are a great example of how a central organizer is required to invest lots of time and effort to make a murder mystery and other types of collaborative stories feasible. So they need to plan the event, they need to get everyone together at a certain time and place, they need to create character personas and match people to those personas. And there's also a very high barrier to entry for the participants. Besides potentially dressing up like you see in this picture, they need to understand a persona, do some good acting, and make sure that the story remains cohesive. So there is a lot of effort put in to create a cohesive, collaborative story that remains fun and engaging for participants. So have digital tools tried to make this easier? Well, the answer is yes. There have been a couple. One example here is Fickly. This is a collaborative storytelling website where one participant will write a chapter, and then another participant can come along and either write a prequel or a sequel, and this can continue as long as they want until you have this long web of stories that are connected together. The problem is these stories have no cohesion that is enforced, and this is because there is no central organizer. People can add to whatever story they see fit. So central organizers are really necessary to make a cohesive collaborative story, but sometimes it's not quite enough. So AmillionPenguins.com was a wiki-based collaborative storytelling tool where people could just add to the story as they saw fit, similar to how you can edit a Wikipedia page. And there were some moderators for this, but they really couldn't enforce cohesion among the large group of people that tried to participate together because they didn't really have any supporting tools. So the really important thing that these tools reveal is that participants need scaffolding. It's not easy for them to create a cohesive story together without some sort of scaffolding that is often provided by a central organizer, such as in a murder mystery party, but could be prevented by some sort of digital tool as well. So one approach is interactive storytelling languages. And what you see here is Inform, which is a well-known language. This is what enables text-based games. So these are the really old computer games where you are presented with some text and then you had to make an option to do one action or another, and that's how the games are built. And there are a lot of programming languages that make creating these games a lot easier for authors. However, there are no tools for collaboration built into these. They're purely for allowing authors to make an experience that is tailored to a participant, not for making some sort of script that participants can contribute to. And so while these are great for making the burden on authors smaller, they don't quite enable collaborative storytelling. Another approach is to use context awareness, and there are a few examples here. Explore AR is location-based storytelling. It lets you sort of tie components of a story to locations. Pokemon Go is very well known, even though not a storytelling application necessarily. It's a great example of how location-based interactions can be super engaging in a mobile app. And there has been academic research that shows these location-based, context-aware experiences are really engaging and immersive for participants. However, none of these have tried to facilitate collaborative storytelling yet. There are multiplayer experiences, but these do not encompass actual collaboration among participants. So context awareness has been shown to be really engaging. Could it be used to reduce the amount of labor that's required from authors and participants? So this is the idea that we try to explore with collective narrative. There are a few components to this system. First of all, there is a context-aware mobile app for participating in collaborative stories. Second, there is a concise storytelling language for authors to create collaborative story scripts. And third, there's a casting engine that allows for automatically turning these author-defined story scripts into opportunistic collaborative storytelling experiences. And at the core of all of this is that collective narrative is a system that makes engaging and cohesive collaborative storytelling easier for authors and participants, and it does this by leveraging context awareness. So how does this work exactly? Well, we have our design argument here. So the outcome that we want is this low-effort way to create and participate within engaging, immersive, and fun collaborative stories. The characteristics is that we've created this storytelling language that allows authors to concisely write scripts that use context awareness to scaffold participants within collaborative stories. So this use of context awareness as a scaffold is really what enables this. And the obstacles that we're overcoming are the high amount of time and effort that are normally required from authors and participants in effective collaborative storytelling experiences, as well as the lack of cohesion and fun that you have with simpler forms of collaborative storytelling. And our argument is that context awareness is the core of the approach because it enables the automatic coordination of participants and it provides dynamic thematic elements that make storytelling easy and engaging for everyone. That's the participants as well as the author. So what are the parts of the interface? Well, of course, we have the CN language. This is what we give authors to create those concise stories. And what you see here is an example of creating a simple murder mystery in CN. So a context-aware murder mystery can involve, for example, the setting of a coffee shop. You get participants who are in different coffee shops, and we're going to opportunistically ping them. So if our app senses that they're in a coffee shop, we'll send them a notification to participate in this murder mystery. We'll then try to understand more information about their context using author-defined questions. You see an example of that here. How busy is the coffee shop right now? And then we'll define characters. Here, it would be the murderer and the innocent characters that are based on the context answers provided by participants. So here you see that the context that defines the murderer character is very busy. What that means is we're going to cast the murderer to be the participant who is in the busiest coffee shop out of all the participants that we have in a coffee shop at any given time. And then we're going to create narrator-driven prompts that are using this contextual information to drive the story forward. So not only are we casting participants, but we're also scaffolding their contribution further as we use contextual information throughout the story to provide them narrative progression. So here you see we have our first clue, the murderer is in a very busy coffee shop. So the goal of any murder mystery is to catch the murderer. Here we are providing contextual information about the person playing the murderer to help the other participants catch who the murderer is. Now we have the CN app. That is what provides the actual participant experience. The context awareness is built into this app. It's what lets us know where the participant currently is, but also it lets the participant answer those pre-story questions such as how busy is your coffee shop? And then we have the synchronous chat feature here. So this is the combination of the narrator and participants who can go ahead and write messages, send images, and this is what builds the story. So in this murder mystery, you see the narrator will whisper to the participants individually, welcome, you've been cast in the innocent role. That way no one else knows how they've been cast. And then it will send messages to the group as a whole. So the first one, as you saw, is the clue that the murderer is in a very busy coffee shop. And participants will share photos. Here you see Carol is sharing a photo that her coffee shop is not very busy. And this is her proof that, hey, I'm not the murderer. Now, as more narrator prompts get released, it becomes harder and harder for the person who is the murderer to hide their identity. And this is how those narrator prompts keep the story progression continuing. And it's the combination of this casting function as well as these narrator prompts that provide the scaffolding for participants to make participating within a collaborative story with collective narrative to be much easier than it normally would be with other platforms. At the same time, it's the author's language that makes creating it easy and making participation easy as well. Now, the CN casting engine is the system that powers all of this. At its core, it is a compiler that turns an author script into a CN, and it's built on top of the collective experiences backend. So the callback structures of CE are carried over here. In this case, our callback structure is enabling casting. So after all participants who are in coffee shops submit those pre-story questions, this callback structure is run, and it casts participants based on how the author defined casting to be done, and it begins the narrator prompts set to a timing function. It will continuously access the contextual information that it stores about each participant to create the story's progression through the narrator figure. Now, this tool automates participant coordination, it automates the creation of character personas, and it automates the progression of stories. These are all aspects of collaborative storytelling that would normally be the burden on a central organizer or author. So in a traditional murder mystery party, these are all the tasks that someone has to do to make an effective party, and this is what collective narrative automates and makes much easier for authors. At the same time, it's providing much more scaffolding for participants than simpler collaborative storytelling alternatives offer, making it easier for them to participate, and using that context keeps it immersive, as they have to sort of hide aspects of their identity if they're the murderer, or they can use aspects of their context to prove that they're innocent. Now, the CN backend also adds a bunch of new features to CE that enable these storytelling aspects. The biggest is that CE would only know that 3 participants are in coffee shops, and it would consider their context to be identical. But CN can ask these further questions, such as what did you order and how busy is the coffee shop? And these are the questions that let it understand deeper contextual affordances that allow it to differentiate between contexts that CE would treat as identical. And this is what enables our scaffolded collaborative storytelling. We ran a pilot study to understand how this system works. We had 3 participants who were in different coffee shops participate within our CN murder mystery, and then we gave them a post-survey asking them to describe their experience, what they liked and disliked, if they noticed anything different by being in the physical setting of a coffee shop, and if they have taken part in other types of murder mysteries, which we did ensure most of them had, to describe what participating in those experiences was like and if CN was unique in any way. And then we also had them describe other mobile games and apps that they would normally spend their time on when they're in the context of a coffee shop, and we had them compare their experiences with those apps to using the CN mobile app. Our results were pretty promising. The first strand of evidence that we found was that participants did find the experience to be engaging, but also low effort. So these are some user quotes. They thought it was a fun experience that didn't involve investing a lot of time. And they did explicitly note that other murder mysteries they've been in required a lot more effort from the participants. And they found the experience overall to be cool and convenient, which really aligns with what we wanted for it to be low effort and fun. We also noticed that they found it fun not only for its context-based aspects like we wanted, but also because it is a social experience. So they really enjoyed that aspect of it, and they also noticed that they were encouraged to look around rather than block out their surroundings. And this is another example not just of how the context was important in the experience, but also how CN is a richer experience than a mobile app would normally provide, and yet it doesn't require much more effort. So while a mobile app really has you looking at your phone blocked from your surroundings, Murder Mystery CN is something that really encourages you to understand the context you're in, to socialize with other people at distance, and it just provides a much more engaging experience than a mobile app would normally provide. So the future work, we really would like to get some better evaluations of CN. It was promising what we understood, but we also noticed that there's a lot of quantitative measures that we could get about these interesting outcomes around increased social interactions, increased contextual awareness, and longitudinal studies are also very important so that we can test the opportunistic aspect of collective narrative. The evaluation of our authoring interface is one other thing that we'd really like to do. We understand that participants do enjoy the experience, they do find it low effort, but we would like to make sure that using the inspiration of interactive programming languages does make the experience easier for authors as well. We would also like a better language and casting engine that can support a broader array of stories. We're really happy with how Murder Mystery works within collective narrative, but we'd like to see all sorts of different stories that fall under collaborative storytelling to also work with our system. And continuity is this new sort of class of abstractions that we've been thinking about that can get us in that direction. These are specifically about enforcing cohesiveness and fluidity for stories that span time and space. So while murder mystery is an experience that occurs at one time synchronously, and isn't really connected to anything besides that one moment, we would love to think about collaborative stories that could take place across long spans of time, involve multiple different contexts and locations, and just provide an even more engaging and rich experience for participants. So the key takeaways about collective narrative is that it provides a low-effort way to create and participate within engaging, immersive, and fun collaborative stories. And it does this through a context-aware iOS app, a concise storytelling language, and a casting engine. So beyond just the benefits brought by the system itself, we also think that we're contributing this idea that context awareness can be used to make collaborative storytelling easier without sacrificing immersiveness or fun. And we do think that future work can expand the scope of context awareness to encompass even more ambitious collaborative stories that span time and space. So thank you for listening.